ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವೊಂದು ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಸೀರೀಸ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋಣ. ಅಂದರೆ ಭಾರತೀಯರಿಗೆ, ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಕನ್ನಡ, ತಮಿಳು, ಮಲಯಾಳಂ, ಹಿಂದಿ ಮಾತಾಡೋರಿಗೆ ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ ಮತ್ತು ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಕಲಿಸೋ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಇದು.
ಹೌದು ಹೌದು. ಇದರ ವಿನ್ಯಾಸ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಒಂಥರ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಬೈ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಅಪ್ರೋಚ್ ಅನ್ನ ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಮೊದಲು ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಶಬ್ದಕೋಶ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಗ್ರಾಮರ್, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ಹೇಗೆ, ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂತ.
ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್. ಶುರೂಲೆ ಫಾದರ್, ಮದರ್, ಬ್ರದರ್, ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್, ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಫಾದರ್, ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಮದರ್ ಈ ಥರ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ರಿಲೇಷನ್ಶಿಪ್ ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಇದಾವೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ತಕ್ಷಣ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಮೈ ಮದರ್ ಅಥವಾ ಮೈ ಬ್ರದರ್ ಇಸ್ 20 years old ಈ ಥರ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದಂತನೂ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
ನಿಜ. ಬರೀ ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡೋದಲ್ಲ, ಅದನ್ನ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಬಳಕೆಗೆ ತರೋದಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಮುಖ್ಯ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಗ್ರಾಮರ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಹಿ ಇಸ್, ಶಿ ಇಸ್, ದೇ ಆರ್, ವಿ ಆರ್ ಇದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಗಮನ ಇದೆ.
ಹೌದು. ಸಿಂಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಪ್ಲೂರಲ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅದನ್ನ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಶಿ ಇಸ್ ಮೈ ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್, ದೇ ಆರ್ ಮೈ ಕಸಿನ್ಸ್ ಈ ಥರ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟು.
ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಲೋಕಲ್ ಭಾಷೆಗಳ ಜೊತೆ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು. ಈಗ ಹಿಂದಿಲಿ ವೋ ಮೇರಿ ಬೆಹನ್ ಹೈ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷಲ್ಲಿ ಶಿ ಇಸ್ ಮೈ ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಅಂತಾರಲ್ಲ.
ಓ ಹೌದು, ಆ ಪಾಟು ನಾನು ನೋಡಿದೆ. ಅದು ಕಲಿಯೋರಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಈಸಿ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು ಅಲ್ವಾ, ತಮ್ಮ ಭಾಷೆಯ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಜೊತೆ ಹೋಲಿಸಿ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ. ಅದು ಬರೀ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಒಂಥರ ಲಾಜಿಕ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ.
ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ, ಒಂದು ಬ್ರಿಡ್ಜ್ ತರ. ಸೊ ಗ್ರಾಮರ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಬಂದು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್. ರಿಯಾ ಮತ್ತೆ ಆನಂದ್ ನಡುವೆ ಒಂದು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಕಾನ್ವರ್ಸೇಷನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ತುಂಬಾ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಆದ್ರೂ ಹೇಗೆ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳೋದು, ಉತ್ತರ ಕೊಡೋದು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗತ್ತೆ.
ಹೌದು. ವಾಟ್ ಡಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಫಾದರ್ ಡೂ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಹಿ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಟೀಚರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದು. ಇದು ಕಾನ್ಫಿಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ ಶುರುನಲ್ಲಿ.
ಖಂಡಿತ. ಬರೀ ಭಾಷೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲ, ನಮ್ಮ ಕಲ್ಚರ್ಗೂ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಜಾಗ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋದು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ.
ಅದೇ ನಾವು ಅಣ್ಣ, ಅಕ್ಕ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ವರ್ಡ್ ಇಲ್ಲವಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಮೈ ಎಲ್ಡರ್ ಬ್ರದರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಆ ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅಥವಾ ಆ ಏಜ್ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ತೋಲ್ಸೋದು ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂತನೂ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
ಹೌದು, ಅದು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಟಿಪ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಬರ್ತ್ಡೇ ಪಾರ್ಟಿ ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶ ತರ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಚಾನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಕಾಮನ್ ಮಿಸ್ಟೇಕ್ಸ್, ಹಿ ಟೀಚರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋ ಬದಲು ಹಿ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಟೀಚರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಸರಿ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು ಕೂಡ ತುಂಬಾ ಮುಖ್ಯ.
ಸರಿ. ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಒಟ್ಟಾರೆಯಾಗಿ ಈ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟ್ನ ಅಪ್ರೋಚ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಮೊದಲು ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಗ್ರಾಮರ್, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಲ್ಚರಲ್ ಟಚ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ತಪ್ಪು ಸರಿ ಮಾಡೋದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಸೇರಿದು ಒಂದು ಪ್ಯಾಕೇಜ್ ತರ ಇದೆ.
ಖಂಡಿತ. ಮಾತಾಡಿ, ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದು ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ಗೆ ಎಂಕರೇಜ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ.
ಸೊ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ತಮ್ಮ ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ, ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ನ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಅಥವಾ ಅವರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡೋಕೆ ಇದು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ?
ಹೌದು, ಅದಕ್ಕಂತೂ ಇದು ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ. ಒಂದು ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ವೇ ಇದೆ, ಕಾನ್ಫಿಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ.
ಆದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ, ಈಗ ಇದು ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ಗೆ ಸರಿ, ಆದರೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲೆಕ್ಸ್ ವಿಷಯಗಳು ಅಂದರೆ ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ ಒಳಗಿನ ಫೀಲಿಂಗ್ಸೋ ಅಥವಾ ಏನಾದರೂ ಡಿಸಗ್ರಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳೋ ಕಲಿಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟ್ ಹೇಗೆ ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ? ಅಥವಾ ಮುಂದಿನ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಅದೊಳ್ಳೆ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್. ಇದು ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಆಳವಾದ ಭಾವನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಹೇಳೋಕೆ ಬೇರೆ ಥರ ವೊಕ್ಯಾಬ್ಯುಲರಿ, ಬೇರೆ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಬಹುಶಃ ಐ ಫೀಲ್, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲಿಕೇಟೆಡ್ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ವಿ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಸಿ ಐ ಟು ಐ ಆನ್ ಈ ಥರಾದ ಮಾತುಗಳು. ಸೊ ಈ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟ್ ಆ ಮುಂದಿನ ಹಂತಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗೋಕೆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್ ಬೇಸ್ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಬಹುದು. ಅದನ್ನ ದಾಟಿ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೋಗೋದು ಕಲಿಯೋರ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ.
ಸರಿ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದೊಂದು ಒಳ್ಳೆಯ ಮೊದಲ ಹೆಜ್ಜೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಮುಂದೆ ಕಲಿಯಲು ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಅವಕಾಶಗಳಿರ್ತವೆ.
तो आज हमारे सामने एक काफी दिलचस्प सामग्री है. ये असल में एक गाइड का हिस्सा है जो भारतीय भाषा बोलने वालों को अंग्रेजी सिखाने के लिए है.
अच्छा.
हाँ, और ये हिस्सा खासतौर पर परिवार और दोस्तों के बारे में अंग्रेजी में कैसे बात करें उस पर फोकस करता है. इसमें देखिए शब्दावली है, बेसिक ग्रामर, बातचीत के उदाहरण और यहाँ तक कि कुछ कल्चरल नोट्स भी हैं.
हाँ, ये तो जरूरी चीजें हैं.
तो चलिए जरा इसकी गहराई में उतरते हैं. देखते हैं कि ये सिखाने के लिए क्या तरीके इस्तेमाल करता है और क्या खास बातें निकल कर आती हैं.
बिल्कुल. ये देखना इंटरेस्टिंग होगा कि ये गाइड जो रोजमर्रा की बातचीत होती है, खासकर परिवार जैसे पर्सनल टॉपिक पर, उसके लिए अंग्रेजी की नींव कैसे रखती है. अक्सर लोग यहीं से शुरुआत करना चाहते हैं.
सही बात है. तो गाइड की शुरुआत होती है बिल्कुल बुनियादी पारिवारिक शब्दों से. फादर, मदर, ब्रदर, सिस्टर, कजन, फ्रेंड, नेबर, इस तरह के शब्द। और फिर सरल वाक्य जैसे दिस इज माई मदर या माई बेस्ट फ्रेंड लिव्स नेक्स्ट डोर, मतलब सीखने वाले को फौरन कुछ बोलने लायक मिल जाता है।
हाँ, और यहाँ एक चीज जो मुझे ध्यान देने लायक लगी वो है कि फौरन ही इज, शी इज, दे आर जैसी जो सहायक क्रियाएं हैं उन पर फोकस किया गया है।
अच्छा, इज़ार पे।
हाँ, क्योंकि वाक्य बनाने के लिए ये बहुत जरूरी है। गाइड इसे आसान बनाने के लिए हिंदी से तुलना भी करती है, जैसे हिंदी में वह मेरी बहन है और अंग्रेजी में शी इज माई सिस्टर। ये भारतीय सीखने वालों के लिए काफी मददगार हो सकता है।
लेकिन एक सवाल है, क्या ग्रामर पर इतनी जल्दी फोकस करने से, खासकर ये इज़ार जैसी चीजों पर, बोलने में शुरुआती हिचकिचाहट थोड़ी बढ़ नहीं सकती? लोग अक्सर डरते हैं कि कहीं ग्रामर गलत ना हो जाए।
देखिए, ये चिंता तो वाजिब है।
बिल्कुल।
पर यह भी सच है कि हमारी भारतीय भाषाओं में अक्सर इस तरह की सहायक क्रिया इज़ार जैसी या तो होती नहीं है या उनका इस्तेमाल अलग होता है।
हाँ, ये तो है।
तो इसीलिए ही टीचर जैसी गलतियां बहुत आम हो जाती हैं। तो मुझे लगता है गाइड शायद इसी बुनियादी गलती को शुरू में ही ठीक करना चाहती है, ये बताकर कि सही वाक्य ही इज अ टीचर है। ये एक तरह का संतुलन बनाने की कोशिश है कि भाई सही भी बोलो और बोलने का कॉन्फिडेंस भी आए।
समझ गया, बैलेंस की बात है। अच्छा, इसके बाद गाइड प्रैक्टिकल अभ्यास पर आती है।
हाँ।
जैसे रिया और आनंद के बीच एक आसान सी बातचीत दी है परिवार के बारे में। व्हाट डज योर फादर डू? ही इज अ टीचर। और फिर प्रैक्टिस के लिए सवाल जवाब भी हैं, जैसे हु इज ही इज माई ब्रदर। इसमें यह भी कहा गया है कि शर्माएं नहीं, बोलें।
हाँ, वो जरूरी है। एक और पहलू जो मुझे काफी इंटरेस्टिंग लगा वो है कल्चरल नोट्स का होना।
अच्छा, कल्चरल नोट्स, उसमें क्या है?
वो ये बताता है कि देखिए, भारतीय भाषाओं में हम सम्मान देने के लिए खास शब्द इस्तेमाल करते हैं, जैसे अन्ना, दीदी, चाचा जी, मामा जी वगैरह।
हाँ, बिल्कुल।
जबकि अंग्रेजी में आपको वही सम्मान दिखाने के लिए अक्सर विनम्र शब्दों माय एल्डर ब्रदर या फिर अपने लहजे, अपने टोन पर ज्यादा निर्भर रहना पड़ता है। तो ये सिर्फ भाषा का अनुवाद नहीं है, ये एक तरह से सांस्कृतिक व्यवहार को भी समझाने की कोशिश है, और ये भाषा सीखने में बहुत अहम चीज है।
हाँ, ये बात तो है। ये जो सांस्कृतिक तालमेल है, ये शुरू में मुश्किल हो सकता है। अच्छा, सीखने को और पक्का करने के लिए गाइड में एक छोटी कहानी भी है, द बर्थडे पार्टी नाम से।
ओके।
उसमें जो शब्दावली और ग्रामर सीखी है, उसी का इस्तेमाल एक पारिवारिक माहौल में करके दिखाया गया है।
कॉन्टेक्स्ट मिल जाता है उससे।
एग्जैक्ट।
हाँ।
और आखिर में एक प्रैक्टिस चैलेंज भी दिया है कि भाई अब आप अपने परिवार का परिचय अंग्रेजी में दीजिए।
तो कुल मिलाकर देखें तो ये गाइड एक काफी व्यवस्थित स्टेप बाय स्टेप तरीका अपना रही है ना?
हाँ, लगता तो यही है।
बुनियादी शब्द सिखाए, फिर जरूरी ग्रामर पर फोकस किया, फिर बातचीत का अभ्यास कराया, फिर कल्चरल बातें समझाई, और फिर दोहराओ और प्रैक्टिस के लिए चैलेंज दिया। ये शुरुआती लोगों के लिए एक साफ रास्ता बनाने की कोशिश है, जिसमें आम गलतियों से कैसे बचें इस पर भी जोर है। ये तरीका वैसे काफी स्टैंडर्ड माना जाता है, खासकर जब वयस्कों को भाषा सिखाते हैं।
तो इस पूरी पड़ताल से हम मुख्य बात क्या निकाल सकते हैं? मेरे ख्याल से ये गाइड एक स्ट्रक्चर्ड तरीका दिखाती है जो शब्दों, व्याकरण, प्रैक्टिस और थोड़ी सांस्कृतिक समझ को जोड़ता है।
बिल्कुल।
ये दिखाता है कि कैसे छोटी से छोटी बातचीत के लिए भी भाषा और संस्कृति साथ साथ चलते हैं।
हाँ, सही कहा। और अंत में एक विचार छोड़ने लायक है, सोचने के लिए।
बताइए।
जब कोई व्यक्ति परिवार जैसे इतने गहरे भावनात्मक विषय पर एक नई भाषा में बात करना सीखता है, तो क्या ये उसके रिश्तों को समझने के तरीके को भी थोड़ा बदल देता है?
कैसे?
जैसे देखिए, अंग्रेजी में अंकल शब्द है, अब वो मामा के लिए भी है, चाचा के लिए भी, फूफा, मौसा, सबके लिए वही एक शब्द है। या फिर ब्रदर या सिस्टर में बड़ा है या छोटा, ये अक्सर साफ नहीं होता जब तक आप एल्डर या यंगर ना लगाएं। तो क्या भाषा की ये जो सामान्यता है, ये उन खास रिश्तों की बारीकियों को थोड़ा धुंधला कर देती है, जिन्हें हमारी अपनी भाषाएं जैसे हिंदी या तमिल या कन्नड़ अपने खास शब्दों से बखूबी संभालती हैं?
ये वाकई सोचने वाली बात है। भाषा सिर्फ संवाद का माध्यम नहीं है, वो शायद हमारे रिश्तों को देखने का नजरिया भी तय करती है।
बिल्कुल। ये भाषा सीखने की प्रक्रिया का एक ऐसा पहलू है जिस पर अक्सर बात नहीं होती।
All right, let's dive into something truly fascinating today. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're about to crack open a seemingly simple resource, a spoken English program, but with a mission to uncover something pretty profound, actually. It's about the surprising efficiency and the hidden principles behind mastering the most basic elements of a new language. Think of it as like decoding the DNA of effective foundational learning. Our source material isn't some dense academic paper or anything like that. It's week 2 of a very practical, very structured learning journey. It's basically a meticulously laid out roadmap designed to help you, our listeners, speak confidently and, importantly, correctly about the people closest to your heart, your family, and your friends. So our deep dive today isn't just about the English words themselves, although we'll cover those. It's really about extracting the deeper insights into communication itself, into cultural understanding, and even into the remarkable power of starting simple. So the big question we're kind of wrestling with here is, how do these fundamental building blocks truly empower you to articulate your personal world, to connect with others when you're navigating a brand new linguistic landscape? What's the really profound, maybe even counterintuitive benefit of such a, let's say, restrained and focused start?
That's a brilliant way to frame it, actually. Because this material, it truly embodies the idea of a shortcut to being well-informed, not just in English vocabulary, but in how learning actually works most effectively. I mean, the core topic, family and friends, that's universally relevant, right? It's a natural starting point for human connection anywhere in the world. But what's really ingenious here is the methodology they're using. It's not just about learning a list of words. It's about optimizing your sort of cognitive bandwidth. You absorb these core concepts first, and they become the bedrock for all the more complex communication that comes later. It's like having a master blueprint for acquiring a skill. This simple material, as you called it, it contains these incredibly valuable nuggets about learning how to learn a language, not just what words to learn. So yeah, we're basically dissecting a very systematic approach here, an approach that empowers you to bridge linguistic gaps and connect with others on a deeply personal level, right from the very first sentences you managed to put together.
Okay, let's peel back the layers then and see exactly how this program builds that foundation. Our source kicks off with part 1, vocabulary, people, and the family. And it really is like gathering the strongest, most essential bricks before you even think about laying the first stone of a house. It feels absolutely fundamental. The program immediately introduces a core set of words, often shown with visuals like flashcards, with a really clear emphasis on immediate application and repetition. And the vocabulary itself, it's intensely practical, universally essential. We're talking about words like father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter, husband, wife, really core stuff. And then it thoughtfully expands that circle a bit to include grandfather, grandmother, uncle, aunt, cousin. And crucially, it even steps just outside the immediate family to include friend and neighbor, which makes sense. But here's the thing, it's not just a list you're supposed to memorize, right?
Exactly. That's the key difference.
The program takes this really pragmatic approach. It pairs each word with a simple, direct sentence. For immediate understanding, immediate repetition. So you get phrases like, this is my mother, or my brother's 20 years old, I have 2 cousins, my best friend lives next door, things like that. What really stands out to me here is that deliberate simplicity. It feels like it minimizes the cognitive load for the learner, But I wonder, couldn't this simplicity almost feel too slow for some people? Maybe a bit, elementary. What's the real benefit of starting so deliberately, so focused, when you've got a whole language ahead of you?
That's a critical question. And it really gets to the heart of effective pedagogical design, especially in language learning. It's not about being too slow. It's actually about being incredibly efficient. The strategic choice of these specific terms, it's brilliant precisely because they represent these core social units, these relationships that are, well, pretty much universal across all cultures. So by starting with words that have direct, often deeply ingrained equivalents in a learner's own language, the mental leap required is dramatically minimized. Your brain isn't struggling with brand new concepts, just new labels for things you already understand. And then that immediate sentence formation you mentioned, it's not just about rote memorization, not at all. It's about activating what we call active recall and contextual encoding. When you say, this is my mother, you're not just recalling 2 words floating in space. You're placing them into a grammatical structure. You're attaching them to a real-world idea, and you're physically saying them. This multimodal thing, seeing it, hearing it, speaking it, that creates stronger, much more durable neural pathways in your brain.
It really does. It transforms that passive knowledge, just knowing the word exists, into active, usable language, almost like building muscle memory, but for communication. This approach also taps right into the learner's inherent desire for those little aha moments. We all love those, right?
Right, that feeling of, I get it.
Exactly. Each simple sentence you manage to produce successfully isn't just a phrase. It's a small victory. It's a mini feedback loop that reinforces the learning and builds your self-efficacy, your confidence.
You see the word, maybe on a card, you hear the sentence, you try speaking it, and bam, suddenly it's not just a word anymore, it's a tool. A tool you can actually use to express something real. And the surprise, perhaps, how quickly your proficiency starts to compound from these seemingly small, very deliberate steps. Mastering this foundational family vocabulary, it immediately unlocks the ability to share little personal stories, to introduce yourself and the people important to you. It lets you connect with others on a surprisingly deep and personal level right from the very beginning of your language journey. I mean, imagine meeting someone new, maybe at work or socially, and within minutes you can confidently say, "This is my sister," or "My father is a doctor."
Yeah, that cuts through a lot of awkwardness.
Totally. It bypasses those initial silences
Yeah.
and helps establish rapport almost instantly. It's really about building bridges, one confidently spoken, simple sentence at a time.
Okay, so we've gathered our vocabulary bricks, as we called them.
Mm-hmm.
But as anyone who's ever tried to build anything knows, you need more than just bricks. You need mortar, right?
The glue.
Exactly, the glue. And in language, that mortar, that glue, often comes in the form of grammar. And this program dives right into what it calls a grammar bite, which I like, specifically focusing on the be verbs. It's presented in this remarkably digestible, bite-sized format. Doesn't feel like some intimidating, overwhelming grammar lesson you might remember from school. The source immediately breaks down these be verbs into their singular and plural forms. Super clear. You get he is, she is, and it is for singular. And then they are and we are for plural. And it wastes absolutely no time giving concrete examples right after explaining the rule, which is great. You get sentences like, she is my sister, he is my uncle, they are my cousins, and we are a happy family. Simple, direct application. Now, what's particularly insightful, I thought, is how the source helps understanding through direct comparison. It explicitly offers an example for Hindi speakers. It says, in Hindi you say, "Wo mere behen hai." In English, "She is my sister." Very simple.
That comparison is really smart.
Yeah. This direct contrast, it just immediately simplifies what could be a complex grammatical point. It shows the equivalence in structure, makes it less abstract, more concrete, especially if you're coming from a different language background. It's not just telling you the rule, it's showing you how it maps onto something you might already know. But tell me, what makes this specific piece of grammar, the be verb, so incredibly foundational? Why is it like the hidden skeleton of English sentences? And what's the thinking, the pedagogical genius maybe, behind breaking down grammar this way? Especially for something as fundamental as be.
Well, one striking thing is how intentional the source material is when it calls the be verb the backbone of your sentence. That's not just a catchy phrase. Linguistically, it truly is. In linguistics, the be verb is a prime example of what we call a copula. That's basically a word that links the subject of a sentence to the predicate, the part that identifies, describes, or states the existence of the subject. It's how you say, "He is a teacher," or "they are friends," or "I am here." It connects the who or what with the what it is or where it is. Now, while English uses be very explicitly for this job, some other languages might do it differently. They might imply it or use verb endings or just put the subject and descriptor next to each other. So for learners whose first language doesn't have an exact equivalent or uses it very differently, mastering is, am, and are becomes absolutely critical. It's a major hurdle initially for many. And a very common pitfall, one that often gives away a non-native speaker pretty quickly, is omitting these verbs entirely.
Oh, yeah, you hear that a lot. He teacher.
Exactly. He teacher instead of he is a teacher. Or
Yeah.
he my sister instead of she's my sister. Now, okay, the meaning might be guessable in simple cases, but this omission isn't just a grammatical slip-up. It really impacts clarity. It can make the speaker sound less fluent, sometimes even a bit, abrupt or unfinished. Imagine trying to describe your family, their jobs, or how they're feeling without using these essential linking verbs correctly. Your message just becomes fragmented. And this brings up that important question you touched on. How does a seemingly small grammatical error, like messing up or leaving out a be verb, actually impede real communication? Even if the vocabulary is perfect, the answer is, well, quite profoundly. It breaks the clarity, it can subtly shift the meaning, and it introduces this unexpected cognitive load on the listener who has to sort of mentally fill in the missing is or are to make sense of it.
Right, they have to do extra work.
They do. So by nailing down these basic forms early on, learners ensure their messages are clear, their descriptions are accurate, and their basic statements are understood without that extra effort. It really is the foundational glue that ensures your sentences hold together properly and convey your precise meaning and intent. It allows for smooth, natural conversation rather than just disjointed words. And that comparison method you highlighted, that leverages something called transfer learning. It helps the brain map these new structures onto existing language frameworks, making the new concept feel less alien and easier to grasp.
That's an incredibly clear explanation. It makes perfect sense why these tiny words carry such enormous weight. Okay, so the deep dive then cleverly moves us from the individual words and the rules, the grammar glue, to actually putting them into action with a real dialogue. This is where it really starts feeling like you're actually speaking, engaging in a conversation rather than just absorbing theory.
Getting practical.
Exactly. The source provides this simple everyday scenario, two characters, Ria and Anand, just talking about their families. And the dialogue itself, it's very straightforward, but it perfectly models a natural exchange. It shows the learner exactly how you transition from those single words and grammar rules into something fluid, something meaningful. So Ria starts, "Hello, Anand." Anand says, "Hi, Ria. How are you?" Ria, "I'm fine. Tell me about your family." Pretty direct.
Yeah, gets right to the point.
Anand describes his small family. "My father, mother, and one younger brother." Ria then asks these practical follow-up questions. "That's nice. What does your father do?" Anand replies, "He is a teacher." Ria asks, "And your mother?" Anand, "She is a homemaker." Simple answers. Then Ria shares a bit about her situation. "Great, I live with my grandparents too." Which leads to Anand's appreciative remark. "Oh, nice. Grandparents are so special."
What I particularly appreciated about this section was the little pop-up tip on the screen right after the dialogue. It just says, speak like this with your friends or family. Don't be shy.
That encouragement is important. It really is. It's so positive. Now, this dialogue, it seems so simple on the surface, yet it conveys a good amount of information and effectively models a common everyday interaction. But I do wonder, is there maybe a risk of sounding too basic if a learner only practices these specific types of exchanges? How does this kind of foundational dialogue prepare them for, more complex, more nuanced conversations down the line?
That's a fair point about the balance between simplicity and progression. And what's compelling here is how this seemingly basic dialogue functions as a really powerful practical application tool. It's definitely not meant to be the end of the conversational journey, but it's a crucial confidence-building beginning. And the source brilliantly reinforces this right afterward by providing a set of common questions for practice. These act almost like conversational templates. These questions, who is he? Who is she? How do you have a big family? How many brothers and sisters do you have? And what does your father do? They're incredibly effective for practice. Why? Well, first, they're high frequency. You hear and use these all the time in initial social interactions. Second, they're open-ended enough to invite different answers, so it's not just rote repetition. And third, they directly link back to the vocabulary and grammar that have just been taught. This structure allows learners to anticipate and practice both asking and answering these fundamental questions about personal details. It builds predictability, which lowers anxiety. And the power of structured dialogue practice like this in building confidence and fluency, it really can't be overstated. It moves a learner beyond just passively understanding to actively producing language. It reinforces that old practice makes perfect idea by giving you a clear, achievable framework to rehearse within, like learning scales on a piano before you try a complex sonata.
Good analogy.
Yeah, you build the muscle memory. Imagine a real-life scenario. You meet someone new, maybe at a work event or just a casual get-together, being able to confidently ask, do you have a big family? Or what does your father do? And critically, understand the reply that immediately opens doors for deeper conversation and connection. These simple cogons are universal icebreakers. And the psychological benefits of overcoming that shyness, that hesitation in a structured, low-stakes learning environment like this, they're immense. It builds this positive feedback loop. Successful communication encourages you to try again, which leads to more success, greater confidence, and ultimately genuine fluency. It's about building foundational conversational resilience. These dialogues, they're like the training wheels on a bike. They allow you to get your balance, gain some momentum before you're ready to take them off and ride freely in more complex situations.
Okay, this next part adds a really fascinating layer to our deep dive. It moves beyond just the words and the grammar rules to explore how cultural values are actually expressed through language, which is super interesting. The source calls it cultural notes respect in Indian families, and it talks specifically about showing respect. It immediately highlights this key distinction between, say, certain Indian languages and English, which I found incredibly insightful. So the source explains that in many Indian languages, for example, you use direct terms like Anna, Akka, D.ED, Baya. These are commonly used to show respect, often indicating an elder brother or sister, or sometimes just as a general term of respect for someone older. And these aren't just labels, they carry a real weight of deference, of status within the family or community.
Right, they encode the relationship explicitly.
Exactly. Then it immediately contrasts this with English. In English, respect is conveyed in a much more subtle way. It's primarily through using polite words, through your tone of voice, through specific word choices and phrases, rather than using specific relational titles within the immediate family structure, like you might in other languages. The examples provided are clear. This is my elder brother, using elder to show the relationship, not a specific title. Or, my grandmother is very kind, and my parents love me a lot. These examples show respect being expressed through adjectives, kind, through describing the relationship positively, or through the sentiments shared rather than a specific title used to the person. I find this distinction incredibly intriguing because it really shows how language subtly shapes our social interactions and reflects these underlying cultural norms. From your perspective, what are the broader implications of understanding this difference, especially when a learner is trying to navigate cross-cultural interactions and avoid, miscommunication or even perceived disrespect?
What's truly fascinating here, and you've touched on it, is how language acts as both a mirror to cultural values and also is a crucial tool in what we call cultural pragmatics. That's basically the study of how context influences how we interpret meaning. Many non-English languages, particularly those from cultures with, let's say, strong hierarchical or family-centric structures, explicitly encode respect directly into the terms of address. For family members, for elders. These honorifics, these titles, they aren't just names. They carry this profound weight of respect, hierarchy, social role within the family, within the community. They actually streamline social interaction by instantly signaling the relationship and the expected behaviors. Now, in contrast, as the source correctly points out, English tends to express respect more implicitly. It relies very heavily on politeness markers, words like please, thank you, could you, would you mind. It relies on appropriate intonation, on carefully chosen vocabulary using elder brother instead of just brother, perhaps, and the overall context of the interaction. You convey respect for your elder brother, maybe, by using polite language when you ask him for something, by the tone you use, not necessarily by adding a specific title like Anna to his name when you talk to him directly in most everyday English contexts. Now, this raises that important question you asked. How might a learner from a culture that does use these explicit honorifics find this aspect of English challenging?
Yeah, it seems like a potential minefield.
It can be. They might struggle with the perceived lack of a direct way to express respect in the way they're used to. They might worry they sound disrespectful or too informal in English. And sometimes they might inadvertently sound disrespectful or too informal simply because they're trying to directly translate their own cultural norms without understanding these English linguistic nuances. For example, a direct translation of an honorific might lead to something like my elder brother, sir, which sounds very unnatural, overly formal, even strange in most everyday English family contexts.
Right, that would sound odd.
It could lead to awkwardness, maybe even unintentional offense, particularly in perhaps more formal cross-cultural settings like business, where building rapport and understanding nuanced communication are really essential. Imagine a business meeting where a new colleague, genuinely trying to be respectful, uses an overly formal or culturally misplaced form of address. It could create an immediate, though totally unintended, barrier. So this tells us that learning a new language isn't just about swapping words. It's about navigating an entirely new set of social and cultural codes. And understanding these codes, even the subtle ones like expressing respect, is one of the broader challenges, but also, frankly, one of the profound rewards of truly mastering a new language. It deepens your empathy, your ability to connect authentically across cultures.
Okay, now we get to what feels like the really fun part, actually telling a story. The source provides this simple narrative as a model, which is just a fantastic way to bring all the vocabulary and the grammar elements we've been discussing together into a cohesive whole. It's presented as Part 6, Short Story The Birthday Party, and it even has accompanying visuals, which helps create a more complete, immersive experience for the learner. The story itself is short, sweet, and it perfectly illustrates how you can weave these simple sentences together into a coherent narrative. It goes like this. Last Sunday, I had a birthday party. My whole family came. My mother made a big chocolate cake. My father decorated the room. My sister gave me a gift. My friends sang happy birthday. We played games and had lots of fun. It's so effective because it's highly relatable, right? Everyone understands a birthday party. And it seamlessly uses all the vocabulary family members, actions, and the grammar points, like the simple past tense and be verbs implicitly, in a natural communicative context. And then, right after the story, the source throws down a challenge. It says, "Now, can you try to tell a short story about your family event? Try in English."
That's a great next step.
It really is. It's a fantastic proactive push for the learner to apply what they've learned creatively, not just passively absorb it. From a learning perspective, how does narrative, even a very simple one like this, help really internalize the language? How does it move it from conscious understanding to something more intuitive, almost effortless? And as if that wasn't enough reinforcement, the source immediately follows up with a really crucial section called Mistakes to Avoid. Smart move. It highlights common errors, specifically pointing out again that neglecting the be verb is a major pitfall, reinforcing that whole backbone idea.
Keeps hammering it home.
Exactly. The examples are direct, unambiguous. It shows you the incorrect version, like he teacher, and immediately corrects it. He's a teacher, clear as day. Similarly, she, my sister, becomes she is my sister. And a very common one for plurals, they is going, is corrected to they are going. And the host in the source material reiterates that crucial piece of advice. Always use is, am, or are correctly. It's the backbone of your sentence. This consistent reminder really drills down on the importance of getting this foundational grammar right. How do these deliberate mistake-spotting exercises, focusing on common errors, contribute to genuine fluency and confidence? Does it go beyond just understanding the rules on paper?
Oh, absolutely. You've hit on two incredibly powerful aspects of language acquisition there. Firstly, the storytelling part. It's brilliant because it taps into the brain's natural affinity for narrative. Our minds are just wired for stories, aren't they?
Totally. We think in stories.
We do. So when you integrate vocabulary and grammar into a cohesive narrative, it's no longer just abstract knowledge floating around. It becomes contextualized, it becomes memorable, it even becomes emotionally resonant sometimes. This process, it's often linked to constructivist learning theory, the idea that learners actively build meaning. It helps shift language from conscious, clunky effort towards more intuitive use. You're not just remembering isolated words, you're remembering a flow, a sequence of events, a mini-drama. Think about how much easier it is to recall facts when they're embedded in a story, rather than just presented as a dry list. And that challenge, the prompt to create their own story, that deepens the internalization even further because it moves them from just imitation to genuine creation. It activates higher-order thinking skills. They have to retrieve the language and structure themselves. Secondly, directly addressing those mistakes to avoid is a crucial proactive strategy in language teaching. The errors the source points out, primarily omitting or misusing be verbs, are indeed incredibly common. As we discussed, this often stems from what linguists call interlanguage interference. Basically, the grammar rules of your native language sneakily influence how you try to speak the new language. For instance, if your language doesn't require a copula like be in the same way, you might naturally leave it out in English. Without explicit correction, these errors can become fossilized.
Fossilized? That sounds bad.
It means they become deeply ingrained habits, very, very difficult to unlearn later on, even when you know the rule intellectually. So this raises that important question again. How does consistent accuracy in basic grammar, like getting the be verb right every time, elevate a learner's communication? How does it get them from just being basically understandable to sounding truly fluent and natural? Well, it's often the difference between conveying just a basic message and being able to express nuances, sound polished, and engage in more sophisticated conversations later on. When be verbs are used correctly, sentences are complete, they're clear, they're unambiguous. This precision reduces confusion and significantly lessens the cognitive load on the listener. Remember, it allows them to focus on your message, not struggle to decode your grammar. And speculating on the psychological impact, as you asked, making fewer of these basic errors drastically boosts the learner's confidence. It makes them more willing to speak, less afraid of sounding wrong. Each correct sentence reinforces the learning. It reduces that anxiety about making mistakes, and it makes the whole act of speaking more enjoyable and less daunting. It creates this powerful positive feedback loop that really propels them forward on their language journey. It's about building a solid foundation of accuracy first, upon which real fluency can then flourish.
Okay, this is where the rubber really meets the road, isn't it? Where all that foundational learning we've talked about, the words, the grammar, the practice, transforms into actionable, real-world communication. The source pushes you, the learner, to actively engage with what you've learned. It moves you beyond just passively consuming information to actively producing it, which is, at the end of the day, the core of mastering any new skill, but especially a language.
Absolutely. Active engagement is key.
The program immediately jumps into practical application with these specific fill-in-the-blank sentences for you to practice saying aloud. It puts you directly in the hot seat, but in a really supportive way. So you're asked to say aloud, "This is my cock." You fill in the family member. Then it's followed by, "He, she is a cock," filling in maybe a profession or description. Then a broader statement, "We are a happy family." And finally, a sentence expressing emotion, "I love my cock." Again, filling in the blank. These sentences feel meticulously designed to activate the vocabulary and the grammar you just learned, but in a very personal and direct way. Connects it to your life, but it doesn't stop there. The source culminates in what it calls the challenge of the week, which I think is incredibly brave and empowering for the learner. It says, record a short video introducing your family in English, post it or say it in front of the mirror.
Yeah, takes courage.
It really does. This isn't just about filling in blanks anymore. It's about authentic self-expression. It's about building actual conversational stamina, the bravery involved, and the immense benefit you get from actually recording yourself, or even just speaking aloud in front of a mirror where you can see and hear yourself. That can't be overstated, can it? It feels like a huge pivotal step in language acquisition. What are the deeper benefits, psychologically, neurologically maybe, of pushing a learner to this level of active production?
This final segment really is the culmination of excellent pedagogical design. It underscores a fundamental principle of effective learning: the immense power of active recall and retrieval practice over just passive consumption. When you're forced to retrieve words, phrases, grammatical structures from your memory and actually produce them, whether that's speaking, writing, or recording yourself, it strengthens those neural pathways far, far more effectively than just recognizing them when you read or listen. This isn't just about basic memorization. It's about making that knowledge readily accessible, fluent, and automatic when you need it in real time. And what's truly fascinating here, as you noted, is how the source guides the learner along. From simple repetition, like those fill-in-the-blank sentences which provide a lot of structure,
Right. Very guided.
to a creative, much more demanding output, like recording a short video introduction. This gradual increase in challenge, moving from guided practice to more independent, spontaneous production, that's a key pedagogical principle known as scaffolding. It builds confidence incrementally. It ensures the learner feels equipped for the next step rather than suddenly feeling overwhelmed and shutting down. And it connects directly back to that desire for aha moments we talked about earlier. That moment when you successfully produce a complete sentence or manage to record that short story or introduction, especially when you can hear or see yourself doing it, that is a significant breakthrough.
Yeah. Tangible proof.
It's tangible proof of progress. It's a clear indicator that all that effort is actually yielding real results. The challenge of the week isn't just about practicing English. It's about conquering a psychological barrier. The fear of speaking, the fear of making mistakes, hearing your own voice, speaking a new language, seeing your own face doing it, producing coherent sentences. It solidifies confidence in a way that simply reading a textbook or listening to audio passively never can. And the source wraps it all up with that profound yet incredibly simple mantra: don't be afraid, speak, repeat, practice. Honestly, this isn't just advice for learning English. It's profoundly effective for acquiring any skill, whether it's playing the guitar or learning to code or mastering a sport. Consistent, brave practice yields not just accuracy, but also fluency, confidence, reduced anxiety, and like a kind of naturalness that passive learning just can never achieve on its own. In the bigger picture, what does it mean? It means the learner transitions from being just a consumer of the language to being a creator of meaning in that language. It empowers them to truly engage with the world and with other people in a brand new way. That's the ultimate aha moment, isn't it? Realizing you can now actually use this language to express yourself.
What an incredible deep dive that was into what might, on the surface, seem like a fairly simple language lesson about family. We've really unpacked the essential vocabulary for talking about family and friends. We've identified those crucial be verbs as the true backbone of basic English sentences. We've explored the power of simple, natural dialogue in building that early conversational resilience. We even delved into the nuanced cultural expression of respect, how it differs across languages, and we saw how all these elements beautifully come together through the profound act of storytelling, all while the source proactively helps learners pinpoint and avoid common pitfalls. So you, our listener, have just engaged with what feels like a masterclass in foundational learning, a blueprint for efficiency, really, putting you firmly on the path to being well-informed and genuinely confident as you navigate new communicative contexts. And speaking of new contexts, our source gives us a fantastic little teaser for what's potentially coming up next in this program. Next time, we'll be exploring the rooms of your house and learning how to talk about your home in English, another foundational topic.
And if we just step back and connect all this to the bigger picture for a final thought, consider how the very act of learning to describe your family, and next, your home, in a new language. It isn't just about memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary lists. It's actually about building entirely new pathways in your brain to share your identity, to connect with other human beings on a profoundly personal level. Learning to articulate who you are, what your immediate world is like, your family, your home in a new tongue. It almost undeniably changes your perception of yourself and your place in the world. It expands your expressive capabilities. And in doing so, it kind of expands your sense of self. It challenges you to translate not just words, but emotions, relationships, deeply held cultural values. And this whole process, this linguistic and cultural navigation, it really becomes a journey of self-discovery. And ultimately, it's a bridge to deeper human connection, allowing you to not just speak a language, but maybe, just maybe, to live in it a little more fully.
That's beautifully put, absolutely. And as our source material so wonderfully encourages, don't be afraid. Speak, repeat, practice. English is your new friend now. So carry these lessons, these insights forward into your daily interactions. Embrace the joy of discovery that comes with each new word and phrase you learn and use. And really savor the empowerment that comes with this newfound knowledge and the potential for connection it brings. Until next time on The Deep Dive, keep exploring, keep speaking, and keep connecting.